before we go to the presentation, so here is a brief bio of today's speaker, Ms. Nirmala Changal Ryan. She is serving in the South African National Defence Force as a professional nurse in the capacity of clinical lecturer for 19 years. She plays a teaching role as critical care nurse since 2012 to present and schedules hospital training accordingly. Ms. Nirmala also has experience in the OHS training field with regard to the maintenance of quality standards. She worked in Philadelphia healthcare train during the second year nursing in 2005 and trained the community on healthcare related problems. She is currently posted as a clinical preceptor working in the clinical education and training department at one military hospital from 2018 to present. She is a qualified assessor moderator from 2019 to present. She presents skill development training programs in a private capacity. She is cum laude 2000 Surgeon General Plotting Trophy, cum laude 2012 Critical Care Nursing, member of International Golden Key 2017, member of Alumni University of Pretoria 2022, member of the National Academy of Sciences, Engineering, Medicine, member of Siemens Health, member of Real Success Network, member of eSpace, CRM 2022, member of J&J Healthcare Academy, member of the Foundation of Professional Development, and member of Africa Health. Without further ado, I will now invite Ms. Nirmala to present her studies. Thank you.
Okay, my topic for today, increasing institutional effectiveness. My approach is meaning perspectives versus transformational strategies. The objective of this presentation, I just want to minimize this thumbnail video, thank you. Okay, we can all see this pendulum. With this pendulum, the aim of this presentation is to show you the balance between meaning perspectives as well as the transformational strategies that we can use to increase or achieve institutional effectiveness. In going forward also, with this presentation, I'll be asking a lot of questions and then also attempt to try and answer the questions for you also. Okay, let's understand the term institutional effectiveness first. There's many definitions in terms, many different definitions in research, but I stuck to this one. According to the Society for College and University Planning Scope, institutional effectiveness is a higher education institution's effort. As you can see, I bolded the term efforts to organize assessment, evaluation, and improvement initiatives so that the institution can determine how well it is fulfilling its mission and achieving its goal. Why did I bold effort? Effort is, in definition, it is a determined attempt, going back to the pendulum. How can we attempt to balance both meaning perspectives from an educational theory perspective as well as from transformational strategies in order to increase institutional effectiveness? So where does the vision, mission, objectives, and the goals come from? In the education faculty or in the education system, we get the vision from the Department of Education, which is nationally, going down to the smaller systems until we come to the higher education institutions. So we need to focus our vision from the higher hierarchy to the lower hierarchy. So we get our vision, the mission, the objectives from the institution itself in order for us to maintain the goals. The goals always are the SMART goals, goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and also time-orientated or time-attainable. So meaning perspective, going back to my title, in line with an educational theory, according to Professor Jack Mesereau, educational theories is an overarching term that describes a collection of theories that explains the application, interpretation, and purpose of learning. It pairs a constructivist learning perspective, the idea that meaning is constructed from experience and internal understanding, with the importance of communication and reflection. I'm sure all of us here today, we are familiar with Jacques Mezirow. So as educators, as lecturers, as facilitators in this capacity, how do we put this into practice? We then need to develop a teaching philosophy, which most of you are also familiar with. A teaching philosophy is a belief statement in which we use theoretical concepts that help to explain the learning process and have the potential to inform educational approaches, curricula, and assessments. So who develops this teaching philosophy? It is us. We as educators, we as facilitators, we develop this teaching philosophy in line with the vision, the mission, the objectives, and the goals of the institution that we are employed or we are governed under. Okay,
Mr. Nirmala,
sorry.
Sorry to interrupt you. Can you just switch on your video so that you are visible? Is it possible? Your video.
Yes, Prof, I am doing that.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
Can you see me?
Not yet.
It says video switched off by host.
Okay. Okay, then you can continue, I think.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Yeah, please, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Going forward, a teaching philosophy, what does this teaching philosophy, or what should it entail? A teaching philosophy should motivate the teacher, who is the teacher, us, to learn about the subject matter, which is also in line with the curricula. What are the expected outcomes of your teaching? The teacher-student relationship, in essence, student-centeredness. How do we measure if your lessons are successful? What values do you impart on your students? Going back to student-centeredness, meaning perspective from the worldview of a student. What code of ethics guides you? For me, this is very important in your teaching philosophy. Ethical principles needs to come into play when you jot down your teaching philosophy. The ethical principles of autonomy, veracity, which is truth-telling, integrity, honesty. For me, which stands out is humility, and also the human principle of perception. Once we have perception, or we master the principle of perception, we can then move towards the goal that I talked about in the beginning. Also, very important, what themes pervade your teaching? Themes, as if you should jot this down somewhere.
I resolve the problem.
Can I start the video? Can you see me?
Yes, you can see. Continue.
Should I continue?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Going to the last bullet, what themes pervade your teaching? Themes like action speaks louder than words, hard work pays off. These themes should be placed in your office or within facilities where when you enter, it helps you to understand the goal that you want to meet. So as I said, there are different types of teaching philosophies. We can then take these various types of teaching philosophies and then adopt it into our own personal teaching philosophy. As you can see, these names are a little bit of a tongue twister. Perennialism, perennialists, for those note takers, I've also jotted down some of my notes. Perennialists, the aim of perennialists is to ensure that the student acquire understanding about great ideas at Western civilization, as you can see now, bringing the worldview of a student. In this case, the student is the one that is the problem solver. Essentialism. Essentialists believe that there is a common core of knowledge that needs to be transferred from students in a systematic, disciplined way. The emphasis here is on the intellectual moral standards. I'm just going to give you the definitions briefly. Because of time, I cannot really dwell into them. Progressivism. Progressivists believe that the education system should focus on the whole child. Everyone has that play factor. So rather on the content or the teacher, we should always have a little bit of play when we involve teaching and learning, but make sure that learning does take place. Again, the learner is the problem solver. And in this case, great ideas are tested by active experimentation. Then we come to the social reconstructivists. The social reconstructivists, the emphasis here is on addressing the social questions and curricula that highlight social reform. So this is where community engagement comes in. The last one, not least, there are more teaching philosophies, but I only focus on these 5. Existentialism focuses on intellectual attitudes.
Guys, ma'am, please listen 1 second. Sorry for interruption. Can you please turn off your virtual background because we can't show your face. Can you please?
I cannot hear you, Fazan. Sorry.
Can you
Should I stop my video? Should I stop my video?
Virtual background. No, ma'am, you have to stop your virtual background.
I can't see the picture background. I can just see stop video.
You have to stop your virtual background. Not the video, ma'am. Virtual background.
Can I stop the video and just continue the presentation maybe?
No, ma'am, you can turn off the virtual background. Virtual, not the video, only the virtual background.
I don't see that.
Okay, ma'am, give me 1 minute. You can continue with your video.
I can't hear you. Can I continue?
You can continue, Ms. Nirmala. You can continue. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay. Thank you, Prof.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, colleagues. I was at the last teaching philosophy, existentialism, which focuses on intellectual attitudes. Individuals are responsible for determining themselves what is true or false, right or wrong, beautiful or ugly. Each of us has a free will to develop as we see fit, okay? So these are the types of teaching philosophies that you can use a bit of each of them and then you adopt your own teaching philosophy. Why, or the purpose of a teaching philosophy? Going back to the classroom and going back to the vision, mission, objectives, and the goals that I talked about in the institution itself. This would help each lecturer, each educator maintain the standards that the student want them to maintain. Because if you adopt your teaching philosophy in line with the vision, the mission, objectives, and the goals of the institution that you are employed in, students won't have that factor. I like lecturer X, I like lecturer Y, because they teach in a different way or they teach in a particular way. If we all adopt the teaching philosophy in line with the vision, mission, objectives, and the goals of the institution, and also coming in using a little bit of our own ethical principles and all of that, and motivating us in the classroom, then we can increase institutional effectiveness. We will get lack of reports on students that are not happy, student affairs departments, all of those issues and concerns would really, really reduce. So where is this teaching philosophy supposed to be, or where does it go? For me, I place my teaching philosophy and I also update it on a yearly basis, usually in the beginning of the year. I go back, I look at it, and then I focus again on the goals that I want to achieve for the new year. I then take it and I put it in my portfolio of evidence. Also, this teaching philosophy question should be part of an interview, part of the interview for a new educator or lecturer that's coming into the institution, or an educator that already exists in the system and maybe wants to be promoted to another level or promoted to another job position. A teaching philosophy, this question should be asked in an interview because it then shows, does this lecturer add to the value of the institution, or how is the lecturer's worldview in line with the institution's vision and the mission. Coming part next to my next part of my title, Transformative Learning. I was very fortunate enough to listen to Prof. William Spady's presentation, the father of OBE, this morning. And, you know, I learned so much. Transformative learning, transformative education really started in 1986, where the first outcomes was established. You know, I did not really know that. And in 1991, the first framework came into play, where now the human factor was considered, not only content, skills, but they then looked at the human factor. So transformative learning or education, it looks as if it's a complex matter or complex deal, which is not really so, because the pandemic had come. We all know it was a global pandemic, and it came and affected us, and then we had loopholes and gaps with online training, and from face-to-face, we had to go to online training, we had to then go to hybrid. And for most countries, like in South Africa as well, we had to adopt and move from the change, which we then saw the gaps that we had. And it takes time, because it really shows from 1986 to present. We are changing, and things are happening slowly, even though there's globalization, there's urbanization, socioeconomic statuses that are different in each country, but our goal is the same. And in saying so, we are all present here today as change agents. In whatever capacity we do work in, we are considered to be change agents. You see this beautiful picture on the right here. We are working towards building the next generation. And I talked about the principle of perception. In whatever we do, you know, we must always have that perception and the idea that we are building the next generation. So going to the transformative strategies in order to achieve and increase this institutional effectiveness that we want and we would like to have. I then, from my experience in developing the clinical education and training units that places students from the higher education institutions in our department when they come for their practical to the clinical areas. And I use some of these strategies to increase institutional effectiveness at that time, which was in the last year. And I call it the PILT model, P-I-P-L-T, as in the mnemonic. And there are various strategies, but I stuck to this one. The first P, problem solving. Do an initial brainstorm. We do this every day, but then put it down on paper, mind map it. What is the initial problem? What are the possible solutions? Problem solving goes hand in hand with conflict management. Be open to making mistakes. I come back to the principle of humility. As educators, as lecturers, we are not perfect people. So we should have that essence of humility. Challenge assumptions about doing the things the right way or doing things the right way in line with the objectives and the goals that you want to meet. Looking for novel solutions, as I said, brainstorming from possible sources outside of your field or the culture in the institution itself. Again, reflection is one of the characteristics or attribution of a change agent. If you have humility, you will sit down and reflect on what worked, what didn't, and why didn't it work, looking for possible solutions in order to make it work. This one I like, no sooner, act faster approach. You know, I heard someone say that if you value the values of the institution, then you will then value the people that you work with or surround yourself with. So the no sooner, act faster, knowing the problem sooner, knowing the conflict sooner, or identifying the conflict sooner, then you will act faster because you value what you do. Address administrative challenges promptly. fortunate for us in South Africa, we do not, or in the SANDF, we do not really have these trigger events like protests, strikes, students protesting for fees, like with us. But in the higher education institutions in South Africa, they are such. But what I've identified is some of the trigger events is mental illness issues that arise from other aspects. So we need to address these challenges promptly. Again, when you brainstorm, you provide tools and opportunities for discussion and debate. The institutional culture, create mentoring and job shadowing programs, commitment to the development of synergetic actions, the coming together, collaborating with other fields, other cultures, other disciplines. Encourage collaborations across teams. We need to have team dynamics. We need to understand each person in the team to broaden our perspectives. Encourage individuals and teams to take risks. As I said, treat failures as progress and growth. The humility factor. Engage employees in activities that challenge the status quo. You know, if you have budgets in your institutions that allow you to take field trips, to have team building where you go for experimental learning gatherings, you know, if you go crazy, use the budgets, do these things because it enhances team building. If you are uniquely or one as a team, you will definitely increase institutional effectiveness. Provide safe spaces for employees to voice their say democratically. Transformative redesign of educational curriculums into community engagement. I talked about it, I think, in some of the slides before. Community engagement, how? Do building projects with the community. Curricula should have aspects of community, the community that the students are from, the learners are from, because we are producing the human factor. We are producing the student to go back and work in the very same community. So we should have this engagement. Also, invite the community to come for career days to the institutions or to the higher education institutions. Involve the community. Integrating student development into student or academic activities. Again, having that play factor, the worldview of the student. Not only work, but a little bit of play, but learning should take place. Interconnected technology systems. Prof. Krug talked about this morning, e-portfolios. I also went and looked at it. A very good system to have. With the pandemic, it also showed us that we needed technology. So also going forward, advance such aspects in your organizations or in the institutions. The third P, personal development. This talks to yourself. Be open to changing your personal perspectives. Push your personal boundaries to travel, try new ideas, meeting new people through collaborations, partnering with other stakeholders. Very important, you need to keep up to date with new evidence-based practices. How? Use research articles, recent research articles. Use the social medias, and then you bring this new evidence and try to implement some of the evidence that worked from research. Try to implement small aspects at a time. Change comes over time. It cannot be done overnight. Very important, and I've started this one. Keep a journal for ideas and reflection. We call it journaling. There are two types of journals or journaling. We have the passive journaling and the active journaling. The passive journaling is a journal or a diary where you write about your daily what happened of the day, what took place. Whereas active journaling, you then jot down your goals, your personal goals. You jot down what you want to achieve, and you give it time limits. It's intentional. Active journaling is intentional. So I started active journaling, and I can see in the past 6 months, it is really, really working for me. Growth of leadership skills. Leadership skills. We all have different types of leadership styles, And then we need to integrate different types of leadership styles in different situations. So that is how we then enforce or grow our leadership styles. Strengthening emotional intelligence. Professor William Spady also really touched about this in the morning, where he talked about what is emotional intelligence: self-awareness, self-realization, self-empowerment, self-exploration, self-discovery. Once you strengthen that and once you master emotional intelligence, you will then master relational intelligence, coming back to the teams that we function in. And with this, definitely we can achieve and increase institutional effectiveness. By promoting and enhancing team building, work and productivity will definitely take place. The L in the PILT model, leadership and governance. Strengthening gaps in policies, not only policies, guidelines, standard working operation procedures, and the pandemic also came and showed us that there are gaps that we need to fix and start moving forward, moving with the times. Again, coming back to advanced best practices. Promote transdisciplinary approaches, the collaboration, the partnering with other disciplines outside of your field, especially when there are multifaceted problems from student-centeredness. So this can really help. Embrace the team efforts. I talked about team diversity. We should all respect each other's flaws, weaknesses, and strengths, and use especially our strengths in each unique way, and embrace team efforts. Collaborate with different groups with a diverse set of peers to share and brainstorm ideas. Going back to brainstorming, very important. Advocate professional development opportunities, skills development opportunities, both from the institution itself and from yourself itself. If there is an event or something that is taking place, a workshop or conference, and if your personal budget allows, attend, come back and bring it back to the institution and say, this is what I attended, this is what worked outside, or this is what I feel can work for us, and try to implement it again in a very small way going forward. Adopt practices that force you to rethink your methods on a regular basis, going back to the brainstorming, always brainstorming, and the self-reflection that I talked about. The T in the PILT model, now talking to students, training and education. Asking the students to share their initial thoughts. Pre-knowledge, we all know, when we get into the classroom, we always adopt the pre-knowledge, or we always find out the pre-knowledge so that we know where to start our lecture, or where to start our teaching for the day, so that we do not start on things that the student already know, so that we move forward from there. Use engaging activities, rich media, connect with the students in using rich media, the interconnected systems that I talked about. Bring in the social media, because we are working now, or we are teaching a different generation, the generation Z, which is more inclined with technology. So bring technology into the classroom, which makes learning fun for the student. Ask students to reflect on activities and discussions that impact the thoughts of the topic. Give students research topics. Give them work where they can go back in line with the field or in line with the subject. I think most of us do this often, and ask the students to reflect on the activities that they themselves has done. How did it work for them? So in this way, you are also building the students' leadership. You are also building the students' perception. In summary, I talked about the pendulum. There should be a balance between the educational theory, the meaning perspectives, the teaching philosophy that I talked about, and the transformative strategies that I try to apply when I developed the clinical education and training unit, and some of the transformative strategies from my experience. And I then identified that they need to be a balance between both. One cannot outweigh the other. Once one outweighs the other, then we do not really achieve or increase the institutional effectiveness that we would want, the productivity of the day. So in saying so, least but not last, the world icon Nelson Mandela had this great say, and I want to paraphrase it. Everyone can rise above their circumstances and achieve success if they are dedicated to and passionate about what they do. It always seems impossible until it is done. Lead from the back and let others believe that they are in front. What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. And you can see that I've shaded the rest of the writing, because I want you to go back and reflect and think about that last statement. What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived, but maybe we have made a change or difference in the next generation to come, or whatever you would like to put there. It all lies with you. In saying so, I'd just like to say thank you. I'm not sure if there are any questions, Prof.